Hello, my name is Margaret Adele, and welcome to another indie book review. Now, I didn't intend on putting another one of these up so soon, but I just kind of flew through this book, and that is Another Dead Intern by Joel Spriggs. This is an urban fantasy, but almost a satire on urban fantasy that is basically a detective story involving, like, fairies and magic drugs. So in this case, we have Hemlock, who has been banished from the fairy court for some things she has done, and she's constantly needing a consort or an intern for her work as a PI. Well, this human guy named Morgan Burns shows up on her doorstep and is like, "Hey, I saw your ad," and she's like, "Hey, I didn't put up an ad." But she's kind of forced to take him in anyway. And there's kind of this underlying mystery of why this random Midwest naive wide-eyed human dude was the choice for her new consort, because she's kind of been losing them, like 3 of them in a row, and this is definitely a book that takes death very lightly. This is definitely a book that takes almost everything lightly, and it's fantastic. Now, when I said that I went through this very quickly, it's not too long. It's about 220-ish pages, but it also just reads really easily. It's not lighthearted, but it's very much a case of it knows what it is and it has a definitive style. Hemlock is that kind of like super cynical PI, despite the fact that she's like 23, and Morgan was probably my favorite because he was so like naive Midwest, needed everything explained to him, but was adorable in his bluntness and awkwardness and eagerness. And when push came to shove, he was actually really resourceful. So it wasn't so much a two-dimensional character that, you know, only existed to have things be told to him. He did bring something to the table in the partnership. And of course, with a book like this, a lot of it depends on the dynamic between the two, and it was done excellently. I love both of the characters and their differences, and I just loved Morgan, how awkward he was, and he can't go through a portal the right way. Every time they try to portal, he's falling over himself, and I found it hysterical every time. There are also some other aspects that I really, really, really liked. I won't get into the details of Hemlock's background because you sort of find out more. Well, the one thing I love is the story could have gone the very standard rote way of, oh, this fairy child has a dramatic, dark backstory worthy of a YA heroine. But she doesn't actually have that big of an issue with her mom per se. More like she understands that fairies just kind of raise their kids differently than humans do. And the fairy queen in this is also, fun fact, a biker chick, and I love it. The Riders of Danann is not just like horse riders, they're bikers, and it's awesome. There's also some psychotic pixies. It relies more on the classic style of these fae creatures, i.e. all of them are low-key dangerous and not the nice versions that you see. So definitely work through some rather gory moments. Alice, the psychotic pixie who befriends the crow, is one of my all-time favorites. There's also like a witch warlock gender reveal party with some giant genitals shown in the sky, and it's fantastic. It's just so nice to have a book that's like, what if urban fantasy, but genitals in the sky? It's so one of those books that, and I love saying this a lot, but it knows what it is. It reminded me a lot of Duck and Dire Dicks for Hire. Almost like that is to sci-fi what this is to fantasy. And Joel Spriggs has actually like read that book, which is awesome. I love when indie authors like know the community and can be like, oh yes, my book is like this other indie book. It's my favorite. But this is definitely one of those stories where you're going to have to already like this kind of thing. Now, see, I love it. I like stories that kind of downplay the angst, and even though there wasn't a lot of angst, there was still like weight. They were still tracking down a very, very serious thing, and I don't want to reveal anything, but people are losing their memories, and those memories are somehow popping up somewhere else and no one's sure how, and I love there's some crazy mystical horses. That was nice. So in general, you'll need to already like this kind of story. If you've never read a comedy book, which is not all that popular on BookTube in general, I personally adore them for their lightheartedness. They are great palate cleansers if you've been reading like a lot of grimdark or a lot of very serious stuff. If you're not the kind of person that likes romance as a palate cleanser, or maybe you've already read enough romance and you're done with it, try a comedy book like this one. But in general, everything was just so fun. And at one point I was like, yay, Bob! Because there's a very mystical character named Bob. And I love that. And he does a weird thing with watermelons, and it can't be cantaloupes. It has to be watermelons. But in general, if you like this kind of thing, you will adore the story. Personally, I gave it 5 stars. I can't even really come up with anything super bad to say about it, other than like, it got slightly info dumpy at parts. There was one instance or a couple instances where they basically used a book and just kind of reading out of the book to understand some things about essentially the creatures they were working with. But that's kind of a little thing. It worked fairly well, and like I said, the dynamics between the two were fantastic. Some things were revealed at the end that I really liked, especially the mystery of why Burns was chosen to be Hemlock's partner was my particular favorite. I can also see a lot of things coming back in the future, a lot of recurring characters. I would love to continue this series. I do believe the author said that this is kind of like his almost like side series, like this isn't the main focus of his writing. It's kind of like one he'll get back to like between breaks. And like I said, I mean, this is the perfect story to read as a palate cleanser, so it does track that it would also be the perfect story to write for a palate cleanser. But this is exactly the kind of book that indie authors can write so well that you don't see a lot of in traditional publishing, which is why I love it so much. So if you love this kind of book, definitely check this out. One of my favorites, and I just am really glad that I could get another indie book read so quickly. So as of right now, I am still closed to review requests, and it might be a little bit longer than I intended to catch up, because gosh darn it, people keep giving me like 500 and 700 page books right now. 700! That's not an exaggeration. I love it, but also it's a lot. So I will open as soon as I can, hopefully by the end of February, but I might be pushing that back. But with nothing else to say, I hope you have a wonderful day and a marvelous tomorrow.